Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to the first panel session today on Wi-Fi 7 and 5G, and really just on Wi-Fi and 5G. The subheader, if you like, is how connectivity can facilitate digital transformation. My name is James Blackman, editor at Enterprise IoT Insights. We have 45 minutes on the clock and a fantastic panel in waiting. So without further ado, I would like to ask each panelist to introduce themselves, say something about their company and themselves, their position, and also something of their worldview on the subject of private networks. If we go in alphabetical order, let's start with Patrick. Patrick, give us the Airbus position if you can.
Hello, nice to meet with you today. So Patrick Castellino, so I am working within Airbus Commercial, because we have 5 different divisions within, I would say, Airbus cross division. So my division is more the aircraft domain. I will present today the digital manufacturing, but I am in charge of the global connectivity for Airbus Commercial. That means 4G, 5G, including the aircraft as a program manager, and business development for all cross division as well in terms of convergence of technology, of solutions and program management.
Lovely, thank you, Patrick. And Caroline, you perhaps don't need an introduction, but give us one anyway.
Hi, this is Caroline Chan. I am a vice president at Intel's Network and Edge Group, and my team is focusing on 4G and 5G. And one of our goals is to bring connectivity, multi-access, but primarily focusing on 4G and 5G into different verticals, and enterprise, enable a lot of IoT devices. So this is actually really, I'm really looking forward to the conversation with this the group of panelists.
Thank you. And Rahul, say something of what you're doing at Qualcomm and your view of the private networks market as it is.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I am Rahul Patel. I am Senior Vice President and General Manager for Connectivity, Cloud and Networking Business Unit at Qualcomm. Qualcomm, I believe, really needs no introduction, but the group that I am part of is responsible for a lot of connectivity wireless technologies that span across many product lines across Qualcomm, from infrastructure point of view in the unlicensed spectrum to devices in many situations.
Okay, thank you, Rahul. And finally, Guillermo, how are we doing?
Hello, very well. Thank you so much, James, for the invitation and the hosting on behalf of Telefónica. My name is Guillermo Quintana. I'm working in Telefónica Global Solutions Unit in business development for multinational corporations. First of all, Telefónica, you probably know very well, it's a global operator. We have our own network operating in 12 countries, Europe and Americas. And we are providing service to customers in over 170 countries worldwide as well. Our mission in our unit is to develop business and generate value around technologies such as IoT, big data, and private networks to these multinational companies. And as other co-speakers said, this is an exciting moment for all, and hopefully we'll have a fantastic dialogue today.
Thank you, Guillermo. Caroline, why don't we start with you? Let's just, if you can, set the scene for us more than we've already done, so far. Just talk around what's going on in the market, because there's a lot in play. There's the private 5G piece, of course, and the LTE piece, and the Wi-Fi, and the connectivity, and all this kind of stuff. But there is the edge cloud, the miniaturization of compute. There's the sensing and all the software and analytics. Just fit it together for us. How does this all come together? What are we seeing?
Yeah, this is actually a very good, I think, setting the stage. Everything goes back to network transformation. We started 10, 12 years ago with many of you here in the group, really looking at how do we make the software from a very hardware-centric appliance focus into more software-defined and as well as a cloudified. I think the history that showed us is that when you open up to much more software network, like just look at what the cloud has been transforming, you open up for innovation, you open up new opportunities, a new addressable market, or expanding the TAM. That becomes, I think, a rallying cry for many of us, including Telefonica, was actually one of the original signees of this whole network transformation paper that we did together in London. Once we started that, we start seeing the idea that even radio access network can be software defined. So we started the whole notion of virtualized RAN, and Intel contributed something called FlexRAN, which is a reference software stack for LTE and now 5G to the ecosystem. Once we started seeing the network being software and being cloudified, we started seeing a lot of things started happening. One primary thing is you became from a very centric cellular to multi-access. To Rahul, to your point, right? Wi-Fi plays a very important role into the entire connectivity piece. And then 5G really accelerated by moving away from a consumer-only focus, iPhone, Android phone focus, smartphone focus, to something that can go into enterprises. The whole notion of ERLC, connecting massive IoT device in addition to eMBB, started the whole notion that when you have a soft platform, you can bring in other things. You can bring the AI into the platform. And then we are then seeing this huge explosion of edge. So inside Intel, we say network, AI, and edge explosion. The three pillars start driving this new market that we are here talking about, enabling private network, enabling connectivity into different verticals. We recently just had an event here at Intel, what we call Intel Vision, what used to be called users group. Well, we show precision agriculture. You never thought about that connectivity enable a whole new revolution in how we do farming here in the United States, starting with, but it soon will be, I'm very confident this could be a very worldwide momentum. Facing all the issues we're seeing, drought, labor shortage, how do we using connectivity to enable edge compute, enable data connection, analytics, to drive a much better yield for the growers, therefore secure our food supply for the society. So I think the fact that we have Airbus on this call is a very good testament that how connectivity is now very foundational to a digital transformation that every enterprise is looking to undergo. So hopefully, okay, James, I gave a little overview, and maybe a little controversial, and people can debate.
That was thorough. That was great. No, thank you, Caroline. So why don't we, Rahul, talk about the Wi-Fi scene, because that gets missed out often when I write about it. It gets missed out because it's ultra critical and all this kind of stuff, and it's these new 5G standards coming in. But Wi-Fi has been there; it's been there all along, and it is getting upgraded alongside, and it's becoming more capable. There's pristine new spectrum coming out. Just tell us about what the Wi-Fi side of things, and tell us, answer this question: is 5G a Wi-Fi replacement, or is Wi-Fi 7 a 5G replacement? Just put us in the picture on what's going on here.
Yeah, I think. James, to respond to your question directly, none of them is going to happen, which is each of them is not going to replace the other. I believe both are complementary. They're going to coexist. 5G is an upgrade on the cellular technology that effectively brings robustness to the cellular world in a different way, while preserving and taking latency and bandwidth to a newer height. And similarly, Wi-Fi 7 does exactly those aspects in the unlicensed spectrum by bringing in tremendous amount of robustness and improving latencies dramatically, as well as enhancing the bandwidth. They're very complementary. One is a LAN technology, the other is largely a WAN technology. Now, with the cloudification of networks, as Caroline was indicating, we will see both coexist in some situations. And there comes the discussion around private networks. Private networks, along with industrialization of networks, where industrial 5G will coexist with industrial Wi-Fi in many situations. And so we anticipate both existing. We anticipate both being extremely complementary to each other in use cases. Predominantly in the homes, you will see Wi-Fi continuing to play a bigger role as many applications come about. More importantly, as computing moves not only into the cloud, but also advances in the edge. The latencies and the bandwidths are going to play a huge role. With Wi-Fi 7, with the use of 6 gigahertz band and wider bandwidth, applications such as XR, applications such as gaming, very latency intensive applications will see a lot more benefits out of Wi-Fi 7. Applications which are multi-user oriented, very similar to what you would see in the 5G world, but now in context of LAN. And so I and Qualcomm see the entire landscape very differently. They are not replacing each other, but they are being very complementary to each other, 5G and Wi-Fi 7.
Okay, that's lovely. And Patrick, I'm going to come to you in a moment and get the kind of the demand side view. But just before I do, I also want to get the telco view, because this is 5G has been a telco market traditionally, or a cellular market, but it is changing. So Guillermo, give me the MNO position, for you, for somebody who's working within a kind of a big global operator, within the global services division, via the spectrum position, with that being carved up and opened up and not just in your hands anymore. Talk about how that works and what the opportunity is from a Telefonica point of view.
Okay, to start, we're living exciting times in terms of private networks. As some analysts are already pointing out, we will be jumping from 1,200 networks worldwide last year up to 12,000 in a 5-year time frame, which is amazing. In our understanding, there are 3 reasons behind this fantastic growth. First one is the technology maturity. We have now 5G standalone in the pure flavor with lots of additional capabilities on top of LTE and 5G non-standalone that were already used and are in place already for many private networks worldwide. And also, as you were mentioning, Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 introducing fantastic advance in terms of performance and capabilities with advanced MIMO, beamforming, etc. So that's the technology. Second factor is that the companies are understanding growingly and investing growingly in the digital transformation that now is incorporating private networks as a crucial part of this transition, meaning that they're understanding the value of having this autonomy, control, and all that is related to private networks. And thirdly, is the ecosystem readiness. And we have a fantastic representation of top-class companies together with my co-speakers today, representing all the stakeholders that have a word to say in this area, from the regulators, device makers, integrators, solutions. And very importantly, you were asking about the role of operators. We find ourselves in a privileged position with our combination of specialized expertise in technology and services that we are being requested by many companies worldwide to put at their service in the development and in their beginning of this transformational process that is related to private networks. Very much importantly, we're not talking only about technology, we'll probably come to that later, but we're talking about use cases, and I think that's the secret. Everyone's understanding that it's not for the pure sake of introducing new networks, but rather for the sake of improving the processes and the business. So that's the view. We are in a fantastic situation. We have lots to learn all together in the co-creation environment of this ecosystem. but I think we have fantastic times ahead.
Okay, thank you, Guillermo. So Patrick, we've got to hear from you. You know, you're actually using this stuff. You're under the hood with it. Talk about what is possible now, because a lot of this stuff, a lot of what has been said is about, you know, URLLC and time-sensitive networking, and you know, all this new unlicensed spectrum for Wi-Fi. None of that's available yet, right? So you're rolling this stuff out now with what is effectively, I would guess, an EMBB type of 5G network. You know, what is the demand and what is the experience you're finding, and do those and the expectation and all those things kind of align for you at the moment?
I will just come back on the history of Airbus. So we started 7 years ago putting the 4G in the aircraft for massive data offload in each airport in the world. So based on the aircraft digital transformation, we become MVNO using some partner in the world. It was a very great success for a specific function called predictive maintenance and Skywise. So we used this experience 5 years ago to launch as well the digital transformation for manufacturing. So we started we started finding partnership like telcos. Unfortunately, our manufacturing plants are based in different countries. I will say France, Spain, Germany, and UK. So based on this kind of requirements and environments, we were not able to find one partner 5 years ago to launch, as I would say, as telco, our full manufacturing. In addition to that, we are still deploying Wi-Fi in Use and Go. So the digital transformation is not to avoid Wi-Fi and the demand of Wi-Fi anyway for the all use cases we have today in manufacturing and all campus, is to find a new way of connectivity. So 4G was the first one in POC, and now we are moving to 5G. So we decided to launch clearly by our own competencies and as well with our own team, a full private 4G, 5G in our campus. When I speak by campus, it's multi-campus at the same time, managed by dual redundant core. I will come back later on that. So today, when I see demands for the use cases is connectivity everywhere and for every worker in the manufacturing and assets. Why for 5G, 4G or 5G? Because the performance of the Wi-Fi in very huge hangar was not enough to perform some specific task in the manufacturing. And even more, we cannot receive the Wi-Fi properly inside an aircraft during the manufacturing process. Only 4G, 5G was able to be, I would say, at the right level of performance within the aircraft for worker. That's our main demand. That means a full roaming and a full connectivity everywhere for every worker in the campus, clearly.
Patrick, thank you. And just to clarify then, with the development of Wi-Fi alongside, and you know, forgive me for not being sharper on this, but the development of Wi-Fi alongside, does that mean that those limitations that you have found from Wi-Fi so far will be addressed in future versions of Wi-Fi, or is this, and will this forever be unservable by Wi-Fi? It will always be a 5G use case.
I would say it can be addressed by the new generation of Wi-Fi. Anyway, the continuity of services will be addressed by the 4G, 5G, not the Wi-Fi. That means the clearly roaming capacity of the technology. Anyway, for Airbus, Wi-Fi is a coexistent technology to 5G, not, I would say, against techno versus another techno. Why we decided to go to 4G is as well to cover a maximum hangar. It's not the case today with Wi-Fi. We can cover a small area with specific performances, I would say, but we cannot cover it with 1 dot or 1 watts all the sites and all the campus. So it is extremely easy for us to provide some or to install some 1 dot with 4G, 5G, indoor, outdoor, against, I would say, multiple dots, Wi-Fi dots or WAPs inside the hangar. That's the main reason. That means coverage and performances.
Okay. And just Pat, just to stay with you, just very quickly on the 5G devices that you are deploying in the manufacturing site, are they available? Are they easily available? What's the ecosystem like at the moment in terms of, you know, availability of things to connect to your industrial 5G network?
A very, very difficult question, I would say. Today, the ecosystem is not there. Why? Because we are using in France and in Germany mainly a dedicated private spectrum. So we own the spectrum today. Unfortunately, the bands used in France and in Germany, that means in France band 38 and in Germany band 43, are not in the ecosystem of tooling and 5G modem today. So it's a very, very difficult activities and complex subject to be managed. So today we are deploying 4G, 5G, and we are working at the same time in the development of a full ecosystem around the campus based on this spectrum. So now we can see new modem coming with these bands. What is behind is how to develop the full ecosystem compliant with the new bands dedicated to private, because it's not clearly public. So it is difficult, and we are pushing all our suppliers in the world to provide this kind of connectivity in addition to Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi is one thing, and we continue to use the Wi-Fi 6 or 7 in terms of obsolescence. But in the same way, we push the development in digital transformation of tooling, of new platform connected to our infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Caroline, let's bring you back in. Just talk around the whole, you know, the way the ecosystem is pulling together, and it's pulling together to address the challenges that are in play, because there is a bunch of them, right? This is not an easy, necessarily as yet, an easy sale and an easy build and an easy run, as it were. Just talk around the, you know, the challenges with you know, standards development, with spectrum availability, with devices, with features and architectural design and this kind of stuff, with skills. I mean, talk around that. Which is the biggest? I mean, it's a silly question perhaps, because they're all interplay and locked together. But just give us, set the scene or tell us something about that. What are the things to think about here?
I think that you list a whole slew of issues, challenges we need to address, and I think we will address it. But one thing I do wanted to highlight, I think Guillermo, you kind of hinted on that this is a business problem to solve. I think coming from, I myself grew up in a telco business. We always look at the problem as a technology issue, you know, chasing the Erlins and solving the RF coverage and squeeze the most out of a spectrum. I think those will be addressed by the whole notion of us. You know, obviously, I gave a lot of respect to the Qualcomm's capability of solving that RF challenges. But the fact that we're going into Airbus, for example, the fact that we're going to the farms, we really are solving a business problem. What is the end result that you need to solve? So as a result, the ecosystem actually become much more complex. It's not just a telco issue. It's a telco plus operation, OT plus IT issue. The decision-making become much more matrix, the buyer side of the decision-making. So at the couple of years ago, Intel partnered with Microsoft, with T-Mobile, Dell, VMware, M-DOS. We decided that we probably need to look at a different way to address this. So we co-founded something called 5G Open Innovation Lab, which is the goal, stated goal is to attract developers coming into the world of 5G to provide applications, the right application, the way that we write for cloud and for example, iPhone, but really write it based on the characteristics of the network. At the same time, we need to collectively remove some of the complexity of telco. So that goes back to your skill set. Who do we need to attract to the new ecosystem? We cannot just be folks here, because we have to, for example, we have to address Airbus issue. That means aviation side of the developers. So we spend a lot of time looking at across the domain, not just telco, but really looking at our partners in IoT group inside Intel. We have a pretty healthy, fast-growing IoT business. Looking at the cloud business, that we have traditionally been in. What is the best learning that we can get from that? We have a community called Network Builders. We used to only attract telco, but now if I look at the Network Builder participants, it's across the board. It's people that really only focus in enterprise before. So I would, if there's one key lessons learned is a rally cry to all of our audience today is join us, really looking at 5G, not just as a RF problem, a spectrum issue, but look at it as a way to solve an enterprise business. If you write things for AR, VR, for hotel, hospitality, restaurants, farming, industrial, but really look at 5G as a tool, enabler for you to reach an audience that you already serve it, but in a much richer communication way. What can we do with it? So hopefully, I throw one challenge to our panelists. I know there are others. You mentioned spectrum and devices. Those all need to be solved. But number one thing is we have to enlarge our ecosystem to cover the needs of our verticals enterprise for private 5G to thrive.
So thank you, Caroline. Guillermo, just talk about the broader market in private networks. And I guess this is really about the cellular side still and how that goes in. But is it a two-speed market at the moment? I mean, is there this sense that this is being sold more easily, especially in, say, CBRS in the US, but is it being sold more easily into what you might call carpeted verticals, like venues and hospitality venues and education campuses and this kind of stuff? Is that fairly easy to do? And is the co-creation we're talking about and the solution building we're talking about really around the Industry 4 and the smart city space and some of these more kind of more complex markets?
Yeah, let me connect back with what we've been saying before, and I think we'll all of us land at the same point. This is not about us trying to push technology on top of what companies and enterprises are developing in their daily operations and strategy, but rather is us serving from technology some services and some support to companies that have intentionally taken that step into progressing into the next step of their digital transformation. What we are seeing, and it could sound counterintuitive, it's not about the pure replacement of pure voice or simple data connections when we're talking about 5G-based private networks, but also with 4G, is that companies, and we have very good examples today, are demanding high performance services for their business. In our experience, and I can speak in first person from Telefónica, we have seen private networks demands and deployments in manufacturing, of course, covering Industry 4.0, logistics, utilities, infrastructures like ports. We have seen that in mining, for instance, with use cases that are really much ahead of what we could be expecting from a simple step-by-step approach. Some examples. In mining, you probably know the existence of these AHS, autonomous haulage systems, which are the big trucks that are self-driven. They provide lots of data to the control centers by sending their daily updates related to predictive maintenance data, but they're also, as I said, autonomous. So they are pulling an average of 400 tons in each load, and we need to be extremely precise. It's a business critical, but close to mission critical service that we are supporting. So to your question, yes, we have simple network setups with very simple use cases that are already adopted by some companies in their effort to start bringing out and growing competence, but we are also seeing demanding cases, and this is where the discussion we were having before related to the growth of the ecosystem that is really needed, devices, applications, etc., are also being demanded and covered by all the top industries worldwide.
Thank you, Guillermo. Rahul, just if we bring you back in and really to talk around the use cases again and talk around how Wi-Fi and 5G kind of work together, that you know, their coexistence, how they complement each other. Just give us a sense of that within the enterprise spaces, rather than the gaming and some of these kind of consumer applications, but in the enterprise space and, you know, the hard-nosed kind of industrial space. Talk around how these technologies grow together, if you can.
Yes, I think so. If you look at the space of industrial IoT, you will find that both 5G and Wi-Fi are coexisting. From things like monitoring goods in warehouses to factory floors, you will find use cases where both 5G, which is mission critical, like Guillermo was indicating, in our applications need, is servicing extremely well. And then Wi-Fi, which is, you know, not so mission critical, but is complementary in offloading a lot of the load that's on the 5G cellular infrastructure, is going to be valuable as well in locating goods and putting logistics in place. So long story short, we see both coexisting in industrial applications. We also see, you know, a big use case of extending broadband to places where today fiber is unable to get to, or it is CapEx prohibitive to deploy fiber because of the subscription challenges that you would have in areas. And so we see, you know, fixed wireless access reaching out to small businesses basically, and complementing with Wi-Fi for their infrastructure needs and wireless needs as another big use case for both to coexist in applications.
Thank you, Rahul. And Caroline, I mean, just if we kind of zoom out a little bit, there's this very famous statistic. I mean, I think it's famous because I keep using it anyway, but which is from Nokia from some time ago, about there being 15 million potential venues for private networks in the world, including 10 million factories and thousands of mines and all this kind of stuff. Is this, and this, the idea that this is the total addressable market? And we heard earlier, I think Guillermo referenced analyst stats that there are 1,200 networks now, there'll be 12,000 in a few years in terms of these private networks. But just in terms of that kind of big headline figure out 15 million, is it the case that in the end, you know, these kind of, you know, a big chunk of these will never move to 5G? For a big chunk of these, whether they're kind of easier going kind of venues, you know, or kind of smaller sized industrial venues, even, they will choose Wi-Fi. They will wait out and hold on until Wi-Fi 7 comes out, and they will make do with this. Or do you expect that, you know, when it will be ubiquitous, you know, the 5G within industry, that will be kind of everywhere. Just give us a sense of that.
Well, I wish I have a crystal ball, but based on our engagement so far, we've seen, I think Patrick has said it really well. Both of them serve a different purpose. I have not seen people say, I'm going to wait out a Wi-Fi, at least the folks that we've talked to, venues, schools, logistics ports and factories. People are looking at a complementary offering between Wi-Fi and cellular technology, whether it's LTE and or 5G. I don't see the path to say I'm going to wait out for Wi-Fi 7 and don't look at cellular. In fact, we have done surveys and asking an agency to poll Fortune 500, Fortune 5,000 companies, at least here in the United States. It was done last year. We found an overwhelming majority of the CIOs are looking at cellular as a complementary technology to the existing, including inside Intel, including our own factories at Intel. I don't see that people would say, I'm just going to stick with Wi-Fi or only thank you very much. People are looking at cellular as a way to complement with the existing Wi-Fi. Most of do have Wi-Fi today. So I don't see that, James, and I hope that for all of us ecosystem, we will make it easier for the CIOs and the operation officers to adopt cellular and Wi-Fi together based on the business needs. At the end of the day, like Guillermo said, it's not about technology, it's really about solving a business problem.
Okay, thank you. And Patrick, just if we bring you back in and give a kind of an enterprise view of the players within the ecosystem, if I can do that, given present company. But I mean, who are the key players in this? Who brings, if you like, the domain knowledge, and who brings the technical know-how, and what role is there for operators? Because clearly, as you've said about this, and as I understand it, there isn't one for the operators in your setup. Just talk about how you see this. I mean, there's system integrators, there is industrial automation specialists, there are hyperscalers in the background, and there, of course, is the enterprise itself, which I'm guessing in mission critical kind of industry will look to run and control that network in most cases. Give us your sense of this.
As mentioned before, we started by our own competencies, and we defined during the digital transformation a core team managing the, I would say, the installation and the deployment of redundant core. So this kind of environment is now the standard for Airbus. We deploy internally this core to be used for France and Germany at the same time. Anyway, the deployment is ongoing. We launched an RFP for that. So we don't know if a telco will manage this kind of network for us or not. Anyway, it's a full local private network without access to the external port. So I would say in terms of definition and requirement, it's really based on industrial requirement like Airbus manufacturing requirements. And the level of security for this requirement is very high. So it is as well why we decided to go to privates without telco and without external link. It's very, very important. Anyway, our infrastructure is dedicated to manufacturing. It's not, our intention is not to use this network to outside, I would say outside use case, outside external use case from Airbus. So we decided to go to a strict SLA, quality of service, performance, but dedicated to our internal network.
Okay, Patrick, thank you. And I'll just skip around a couple more and then we'll go to the questions. We'll have a few minutes for questions that are in at the end. But Guillermo, just quickly define how MNOs develop the kind of industrial knowledge in all of this, because this is a new discipline, right? And do you go for one or two vertical markets, or do you spread yourself more broadly than that?
Okay, that's a good question. As we were saying before, branching back into that, this is a scenario of different stakeholders playing different roles, but all in collaboration and with a co-creation mindset, okay? We are specialized, if you want, in providing network services and technology, and we have lived the whole experience in all that takes in the whole process. And let me just summarize it in 4 steps: advise, design, build, and operate the networks. We have experienced that for many years in different generations. So we've learned a lot about that. Now, when it comes to going to the practical implementation into use cases, then what we can do and what we are doing is coming out of our comfort zone, okay, putting all that knowledge at the service of the companies demanding private network services, among others, because there's, by the way, lots of connection with IoT, big data, AI, as you were mentioning before, some other speakers also mentioned. So what we are trying to do is to gain competence in those areas by connecting the dots between our formerly areas of strong knowledge together with the specific demands of use cases. We are growing fantastic competence in some of the areas, as I mentioned before, in very specific fields like logistics, manufacturing, mining, infrastructures, etc. But again, this is only the beginning of the story. We have lots to go ahead And hopefully we are putting the foundations for a successful implementation of these solutions in the end.
Yeah, thank you. Rahul, I'm just going to finish with you, and then I'm going to go through a couple of these questions. I think there's a bit of repetition in there insofar as we've addressed some of the questions being asked, and there's a couple of new things. So we'll go to them. But just quickly, Rahul, just the big question in this is, very clearly it's early days, but how does this scale? I mean, Patrick's talking about Airbus going multi-site in Europe, which looks like scale to me. But how does it go beyond big companies like Airbus? How does it get into the hands of small and medium-sized enterprises? How does this come together for them?
Yes, I think that's an excellent question, James. Our view is bringing private networks or cellular networks in private network scenarios is an excellent way of expanding reach to the cloudification of networks, basically. Having said that, we also need to see devices adopting cellular technology in a bigger way for bringing those devices into the use cases of the private networks. For example, today, the phone is an obvious thing that is going to be an ideal device for a private network access or something that has some cellular technology. Bringing the PC into the fore by having the PC being able to connect cellularly with the private networks is going to be a key component on a going forward basis. And so we believe a couple of these things have to fall in place for a wider adoption of private networks on a going forward basis. In absence of that, I think you are going to see a lot more use of Wi-Fi in place of private networks. And so I do believe the momentum is beginning to take place on the device side, where non-phone devices will start adopting cellular technology. And so once that gains traction and a lot more momentum, I believe there will be a wider proliferation of private networks across many spectrums of enterprises, as well as many business cases will emerge.
Okay, and Rahul, there's a question here which we've touched upon, but maybe just to reiterate, if you like, but it's around, what is going to persuade an enterprise to upgrade or install 5G rather than just wait for Wi-Fi, 6E and 7 and this kind of stuff. What is it about 5G which is going to persuade them that they need both at the very least?
Yes, I think what you're going to see is there is going to be extension of the enterprise networks to partners, consultants coming into the network, right? CIOs want to prevent or preserve the boundaries of their networks that they control versus what people bring into the networks. And so, for example, your Federal Express tracking service that your delivery service is going to need, basically. Do you want that to take place when that guy pulls the truck up in your warehouse? Do you want that to take place over your Wi-Fi network or over your private network going back into the cloud? You'd rather have it over the private network and preserve your LAN network as a result. So we see use cases like this coming to play in a way that will kind of make the use of private networks a lot more prevalent on a going forward basis. Further, private networks, when they use cellular technology, they're a lot more robust, a lot more further reaching, a lot more secure in many regards. And so those aspects also enable the use of private networks.
Okay, Rahul, everybody, I'm gonna call it a call time there. Thank you so much. Sorry we did not get to more questions. That is my fault. I did not manage the session better, but we will get to them, I'm sure, through the rest of the day. Just to thank the panel, Patrick Castagnino from Airbus, Caroline Chan from Intel, Rahul Patel from Qualcomm, and Guillermo Quintana from Telefonica. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your insights. And if you're watching now, if you return to the main menu, I will meet you with Patrick in a couple of minutes for the Airbus case study about how to scale 5G across multiple sites. That should be good. In the meantime, thank you very much and goodbye.